Welcome to International Securities Exchange's podcast series. Facilitated by renowned educators, ISE podcasts are intended to teach beginning as well as seasoned investors the ins and outs of trading. To find an updated list of podcasts, please visit www.ise.com/podcasts. Please be sure to listen to our important message following this episode regarding the risks of investing in exchange-traded options.
This is a great question. Is it wise idea to fade currency moves that occurred during the G20 meetings? Not sure if it's a wise idea, but it's an idea that a lot of people have, especially this move of late against the U.S. dollar going into G20. Some people have talked about that. From a trading perspective, can sometimes be a nice setup, but you have to be disciplined and keep your stops in play in here. A lot of these things look very extended in the U.S. dollar in front of G20. So who knows? A great question. Unfortunately, I don't have a great answer other than to say it very much could be. Are there any currencies partially backed by gold? Another great question. No. There are countries that have more gold reserves than others, but at the moment that game is over. There really are no. But there may be in the. I can't think of any, especially in the industrialized side, that are backed by gold. Governments, unfortunately, the genie is out of the bottle. Gold and hard money and real assets backing money supply and spending hemmed in politicians. Politicians, thanks to central banks, have learned that they can bypass that game and spend and create more and more power. So I don't think we'll ever go back, unfortunately, to a monetary system based on real assets that ties the hands of politicians. I think it would be shocking to see that in my lifetime, I think, sadly. So another question, what do you think will happen in the U.S. dollar-Japanese yen pair? Again, it could continue down just because of the weakness in the U.S., but we think from a longer-term perspective, we think the Japanese yen relative to the U.S. dollar is extremely, extremely overvalued. From a long-term play, that's one of our favorites. If the dollar finally looks like it's putting in some type of longer-term bottom, we think the Japanese yen is way overvalued, and it will weaken substantially over the months, over many, many months, maybe even years against the U.S. dollar if we finally start to see the U.S. dollar bottom. So that's one that we have an eye on from a long-term basis. Unfortunately, we've tried it a couple times in here, and again, it's been in front of a steamroller. But when you look at the makeup of the Japanese economy relative to the U.S. economy, the demographic problems, and other things, I think that it's very, very overvalued, the Japanese yen, and that's to take nothing away from the Japanese economy. It's incredible what the Japanese have done with as few people as they have, and as little resources they have. So it's a very dynamic economy still in terms of world economies, but just from a pure standpoint against the U.S. dollar and the relative currency values, we think the yen is very overvalued. If the Fed increases interest rates 25 basis points, would that change any of these dollar scenarios? What it would change is the fact that I think you'd start to see what you would start to see if we see that, and it happens before people think it is, it would be a surprise. So if you see a surprise move on interest rates, it's going to lead people to the expectation that the Fed is very serious about taking money back out of the system, getting money off the table. So you'd lead to this expectations of the yield differential improving on the dollar much, much more quickly. So the 25 basis points itself wouldn't be huge, but if it comes before expected, it changes the whole expectational view in the market and would be very beneficial to the U.S. dollar, I think. Other question, there's a lot of discussion about gold rising further in the near term. What is your opinion? Opinion is if the U.S. dollar continues down, there's no reason that gold cannot continue up. It's playing a partial fear role. It's playing the idea that the fiat currencies in general, it's the fear role not only against the U.S. dollar, but the fear role against just risk in general flowing into the U.S. market, whether it be bonds or whatever. It is becoming the safe haven. And I think it's all a function of what continues to happen in the U.S. economy. Now we have to be careful if we get one of those major risk bids again. and people flow back into U.S. Treasuries, we saw gold come off a bit. But even then, in this environment where there's a lot of potential for a lot of total dislocation, I think gold is holding up very well. And when you saw that break in commodities and when the dollar rocketed up, it was mostly against oil and the other commodity markets. Gold really didn't come off on a relative basis that much, even when the dollar made that big move from its bottom up to 90 on the dollar index. So gold in here looks fairly well supported in this environment. Can that change? Yes. I've never been a gold bug, into my chagrin, of late, but there's no reason it can't go higher given the role that it's playing. Take one more question, one or two more questions. Another question is opinion, talk of a world currency. I think any of that talk of a world currency is just talk. We're really not in a position to change the structure of the global monetary system, especially in the time when we're still trying to get out of the problems we're in. The dollar still serves as has played that role very, very well. So I think this talk of a world currency is going to be many, many years off. You see this type of talk increase in a major dollar bear market, but there just is no system in place. They talked about SDRs out of the using the SDR. I forget the SDR, I just blanked. But the depository receipts. They just really can't play the role in the monetary system. IMF would have to take on a lot of risk in order to do that. They would take on dollar risk on the backside. There's not enough of them to really represent what's needed in the world. So I think this world currency idea, you very much have to poo-poo. I don't think we're going to see it. That's my opinion on it. So I think that's it. I thank everybody. I very much appreciate your time today and a lot of really great questions. And hopefully you'll visit blackswantrading.com, see what we have to offer, and also the ISE, which has a lot of great products and a very excellent website. So thank you. And you all have a good night.
Thank you, Jack. Thanks, everyone. Have a nice evening. And we'll see you next week.
Thanks, Annette. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to our podcast. To find more podcasts on options, stocks, alternative markets, and market data, please visit www.ise.com/podcasts.